Anastasia, I don't know why I can't see you. I can see there's 2 participants, but I can't see you or hear you. I don't think I had it where I was supposed to admit you. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, hi. I have on headphones because my husband's in the next room in a meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see
Yeah.
the door shut.
Yeah. He doesn't usually work at home anymore,
Yeah.
but the college campus, we both work on the same college campus and our campus is closed. So
Okay.
yeah. Is this okay for you? Can you hear me okay? It
I hear
feels
you
really
fine.
strange to wear these, but it makes it possible for me to do it. So
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I don't want to disturb him either.
yeah, he has so much hearing loss that he can't hear much at all.
Oh.
Yeah, he's gonna have a bunch of surgery in January to try to correct it. But what's weird is the background noise. Background noises interfere with his ability to process.
Oh.
Yeah, so if there's a lot of voices around.
Yeah, my father has that. And so when we're visiting in a group, he's like,
Yes, exactly.
any of this. If you want to talk to me, you have to be right here.
Yes,
And
yes.
they can't be doing that over there.
That's exactly the same for me. Yeah. It's been quite a journey for him, but all the growths that are happening that where they're not supposed to happen are benign.
Okay. All
So
right.
it's not, it's one of those things. And so anyway, it's all looking up. That's all I'll say about it. Yeah.
Thank you for my gifts. I got them yesterday.
Oh, yay.
I mean, the gift of for everything from the way you wrapped it and the way you wrote your return address and my to me address. And I've got Sally over there on my metal door. I am so in love with her.
Me
and
too.
that particular frame. And
who knew?
I'm so grateful to you. Now I get to look at that every day for the rest of my life.
And I've been looking at it forever. When I saw that did I tell you what happened where I saw?
Yeah, that old post came up.
Yes.
From Sonoma County when I went there and had that amazing experience at the
Yeah.
Charles Schultz Museum.
And I looked at that and I said, well, of course she loves Sally. Why am I? She loves Linda Berry. She is who she is. And
Sally too, though.
Yeah. And then I have had that magnet made for a million years.
You have?
Yeah, I've had my magnet like that forever. Yeah, I have it set so whenever I feel somebody needs her, I just make a new magnet. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. We were totally meant to be. This is a kind of a sisterhood thing that you've done here. Wow.
It's astonishing, isn't it? I just, when I saw,
think of how many thousands of
I know,
other frames would
I know.
also have been inspiring to you. But
Yes. No,
that
that's the
really-
one. When I'll never forget when I saw that cartoon, I clipped it and I've had it forever. And then I saw it again somewhere and I thought, no, I want to see this all the time now. It was like right before COVID started. I thought, I actually am worried that this piece of paper is just going to keep crumbling and falling apart.
Yeah.
So let me just make a magnet out of it.
It's
Yeah.
dynamite.
So I feel the same way. I need to see her saying that all the time. Well, you won't get away. For me, it says everything.
It does.
Right.
She's so angry. She's a little child angry.
Yeah. And with such hope and optimism,
Yeah.
Yeah, this will go away. Motherfucker.
Exactly. Sally would say motherfucker.
She would.
It's the spirit of motherfucker that's in that. You won't get away with it forever.
Exactly.
And I love I have the other magnet on my refrigerator of Breonna Taylor, the
oh yeah,
the photo capture of the start of that march.
Oh my gosh.
It's all so beautiful. Thank you. And for the cards and for the books.
Oh, you're welcome.
Both of them. Thank
Good.
you.
Yeah. Those cards, where the paper was the torn up book, it was torn up thing. And I thought, that was always something I wanted to do when I got back to in-person workshops and have people choose something from not my idea to put on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I thought, I would love to do that. But now that we've been talking so much and who knew this was going to happen, I feel so much more open to what the possibilities of art making might look like. And, I just have to say, I don't know what to say in a lot of ways about You Ruined It. Whoa. Just, there's so much. And I just feel like I want to have many talks with you about it if you can.
Yeah, sure, whenever.
Okay. I did not, I don't have that experience in my history in any way, so I don't have any visceral responses to it. It's more that
interesting.
I have known so many people who have and wanted to understand. And despite all the groups I've sat in and listened to, in particular women, talk about this, honestly, nothing came close to what your book did.
Really?
To help me. Yeah. And so I'm just really thinking a lot about my dear friends who've experienced this and are still living, through it, around it, over it, under it,
Exactly.
Yeah. So I just see so much there, and I can't, every time I read it, I stop at the end and say, how did she do this? Like,
life's work.
How long will you be like Rip Van Winkle and sleep?
That one took 40 years.
Oh.
I mean, if you think of it in terms of,
yeah,
40 to 50, whatever, somewhere in those first 10 years.
Yeah.
Stuff happened and then got reinforced. But yeah, so I've been working on it ever since. And it means so much to me that this is new information. And another friend of mine said this. The way in which that book can help people be understood to their people. Like my friend who is 70 years old and has a relatively new boyfriend who's now her partner, and they're committing their lives to each other at this age, at this stage of life. She said, I'm going to use this to explain myself, to reveal myself, it's going to help me show who I am to him. And that's
Yes.
unforeseen, or it's
Oh,
all
yes.
intended. It is intended, but the specificity of that is really remarkable. And so I receive that information and think, yes, we can use this to let please understand me. I want you to know me. I want you to understand me. And maybe it could be a tool for that.
Well, I think it brings for me to mind, I don't know if this will seem true to you or not, but now listening to you say that, I think about in my Waldorf teacher training when we were working with singing and voice. And for the first time, somebody said to me, it's really tempting to think that the notes are inside of you and they're coming out. It's actually more true that the notes are out in the cosmos, they're out in the space. And when you lift your voice, it lifts up so that it can receive it and regenerate it. It's not the process that you think it is. And that has started to really turn around for me when I've really been looking over your books again with a new eye and ear and every other sense. And that has been coming to me over and over again. Almost like when I read them, I think, oh, they were there and she opened up and they went all the way through her and then all the way back out again with some kind of a new life. And we just don't know what that's going to be, because as I've said to you before, it feels very much about the future, of all of this. Does that resonate with you?
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it does, of course, in the way of like it feels like a miracle if I picture how a page is going to look. And then I make the page and something surprising happens that I didn't intend because I couldn't find that one piece. And I thought I was going to do it this way, but it ended up being this. But then I look at it and it's different than what I thought I was making, but it's better. And it seems to be some other forces that made, that are part of that. It feels like, and I know artists talk about this a lot, and it's like, no, that came through. That I can't even say that's mine. Like that's mine. I put my hands there. I put that little sweater on that child. I drew that little eye, but something else was happening. And so I remain in awe of it and grateful for. But once it's out, it feels like it belongs to something else.
Right. Yeah, that's what I understood you to say. And I think when I recognize the idea of a voice and having a voice, that's so prevalent throughout all of this. And I thought about singing, and musicality. And I don't know, I keep thinking about the notes of people's stories, the language, the language of music being a metaphor for all of this. And anyway, I don't know where I'm going with it, but it could also be I was with my old dear friend who's a composer yesterday, and
oh, wonderful, yes.
Yeah, and she had a stroke, and so she's recovering. And we were talking about her relationship to composing and notes and how that really, she felt like that sustained her through the stroke.
Mm.
And we talked, and I started thinking about the sustenance of, you ruined it, how, all the things that sustain people through things, and the language of music being a metaphor for those, like, what are the notes playing in somebody's head that,
Mm.
that allow them to move through something like that, an experience like that. I mean, I have so many questions about all the people in that book.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Talk about it, or we can talk. What I am in relation to, and in
Yeah, it's there for you.
however whatever you want to create here, and for us to focus on for who you share this with. So we don't have to talk about You Ruined It, even though you just read it this past week. If that doesn't make sense for the people who are receiving this, I want whatever we talk about to make sense for the people receiving. So I defer to you on that. Whatever you say, however you want to lead us, doesn't.
Well, the only thing I would say is that eventually they'll be able to buy the book and they'll know the story. And so maybe I wouldn't, if you're okay with it, I would love to hear about the specific characters in the book.
Yeah.
Especially, is her name Angel? Oh, I can't think of her name. Yes. Yeah, because she was like a muse for me, just I can see in your face. Yeah.
She's real.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you. I thought maybe she might be.
She's real. I met her at the Linda Berry workshop.
Oh.
In 2015. And she is a writer. She is a witch. She is a healer. She is a tarot reader. She is struggling to heal herself and be in life, and all the things that we're all doing, free falling, the groundlessness of being. And so tonight, Angeliska is leading a 2-hour workshop for the solstice. Not workshop is not the right word, but a 2-hour gathering and teaching and spell casting for the solstice. And you're welcome to join if you have time this evening. I could send you the link.
Yeah, if you would, if I can, I will. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're making dolls together, Manzanella.
Oh my gosh.
Dolls. Yeah, we're making dolls, and that's so that character, when Angeliska comes, is such a relief for me in that book. I mean, to me, I couldn't. I was like, can't the book be bigger? I need Angeliska to be bigger. I need Angeliska to be like, can we make this book pop up? And she's like, like in the room, like I wanted her presence to be just like, and so
well, it was for me.
She,
oh my gosh, yeah, I was like, can I just say, can we just talk about that? Like, wow,
that's new. I was just
okay,
this is real. I need to make sure that this little kid, Dawn, gets through this, and
right.
not this. I need to make sure that Dawn does not harm herself in her later teens, in her mid-20s. I need to make sure she doesn't harm her children. I need to make sure she doesn't have recurring problems with addiction, or with lovers who are not, always trying to recreate that initial attraction with the cousin that got totally out of hand because he didn't know his boundary. And so I was like, who? And in an early version of the story, she is really wrestling with the character of Dawn is really wrestling with this teaching that she's heard in church about, that one, I'm not going to quote it right, but don't, like anybody can love their friends. Can you love your enemy?
Right.
And so that's where she's kind of stuck, in terms of, because it is a story about, she loves this person.
Right.
They committed this crime. she loves this person. They committed this crime. I mean, she's just stuck there. And and so I had originally written, because I was with both stories, I'm really processing with What You Don't Know and with You Ruined It, the damaging effect of Christianity as it is practiced in this country, and the messages that come through in regular, ordinary, terrible mass or ordinary, terrible church, where those messages are just coming through uncritically. And I mean, and we're children, so we're just taking, I took all that stuff literally. And so, you know, the child in What You Don't Know rejects the shame that he feels in that church about his gayness, but also his blackness. It's just not stated. It's not, you know, we don't talk about that, but he's getting that at church. And so for the girl child in You Ruined It, I was having her take in that you need to love your enemy as creating an impossible situation for her around having any boundaries. Because for her, then her understanding of Christ is that there is no limit to what you can be expected to give of yourself in love. So she is in that creates this crisis for her in that truck. And then continues to be a crisis in her own healing, because she can't even access her anger at what has happened. I don't think we get the tiniest glimpse of it, the tiniest glimpse when she's angry at the air for making her feel stupid and weak. She still can't attach it to him. You know, to the person, the perpetrator. And, but so in the early version, I have her dreaming and I have Christ show up, just like in the other book, I have Christ show up. And I have her say to him, I had him say to her, I don't like what he did with you. You're a child. And she says, but I let him. She starts to say, but I let him. And he says, you're a child. There was no choice there. I want you safe in this perfect body. Unruined, you know, and she would, in the early version, says to Jesus, I want to love my enemies. And he said, let me love your enemies. I don't want that burden for you. Give that to me. You know, and so it's very, that's very like, it was beautiful to me and a breakthrough in the early version. And I thought, okay, now she'll be okay. But something about me changed, and something about the world changed, and something about having made What You Don't Know, where the little baby Christ comes in and talks to the little baby boy. Those spirits communicate with each other and they settle everything, you know, up in the rafters of the church in that book. And so I respectfully didn't need him to appear in the book about incest abuse.
Got it.
And I was in a different place. And so when I got to that moment in the story, I needed different characters, and I needed Angeliska for her.
Did you know her yet?
Yep. And because I rented, my sister rented for me an apartment on Rockaway Beach in Far Rockaway in Queens. So that, because I wanted to live by the beach, and I didn't want to, and I'm going through a separation from my partner, and I needed to experience living by myself and apart from the kids sometimes, just to see if I could do it. So my sister got me this place, and I knew I needed to finish the script for You Ruined It, but I couldn't find the old version in my computer for some reason. It's here, but I couldn't find it. And so I was like, all right, I'm starting over. And I just started with a blank page, and I had it done within 2 weeks, and Angeliska was there and Billy was there, and it was a different story. And I was like, wow, okay, this is the story now. and I trusted it completely, and I never looked back.
And you know, that energy is all over that book for me.
Really?
That's, yeah, that's what caused me to think about the music.
Really?
Yes, that I and I looked back at your other books to see if I could get the same
Mm,
feeling from it, and I didn't. And
mm,
there were other feelings, of course, but
mm.
this book in particular, and
Yeah.
I know my immediate response was it's reaching for the skies. Like I kept thinking of it's somewhere in another place.
Mhm.
And of course, I didn't know all that.
Yeah.
And that feeling is all over that book.
Which feeling? The feeling of,
The feeling of I went somewhere else
yeah.
and I couldn't find what
Mhm,
I thought the story was supposed to be.
mhm,
So this one came,
mhm.
and these characters came, and because Angeliska was not originally there.
And
You know,
now she's
and then there she is, big
so,
throughout the book. I almost felt her coming. I thought something's coming.
yeah, and it's mother, but it's not mother like gender.
No,
It's it's
no,
it's a universal energy
yes.
kind of. I'm here. I'm here.
And I was feeling that in understanding the people who I care about who've experienced this, that they're looking for Angeliska in themselves, that there's, and they're, it's not happening. You know, there's still that missing Angeliska. You know, they do somatics, do all kinds of different work,
Mhm.
and there she is,
And she needed to be not related.
right?
You know, I wanted the child to have someone outside the family, but this worldly, but otherworldly.
Yes.
And and Angeliska doesn't sweep her up in her arms.
Mm-mm.
Angeliska doesn't hold
Mhm.
her while she cries, and we never
Mhm.
see Dawn cry
Mhm.
in that story. Um, but she senses into what needs to happen
Mhm.
for the whole family. I mean,
Mhm.
Angeliska shows up and does a lot of work, and that's why I does a lot of labor, and that's why
Yes.
I put Angeliska in the conversation, the questions at the end and the
Yes.
part at the
Right.
end, because you know I want the reader to think about the care that Angeliska now needs, having taken this
Yes.
on,
Yeah.
because Angeliska is closest to the person in the one of the people in the family who's terribly, terribly hurt and is going to be working with this for the rest of their lives, and that's Billy. And but also has an ability to tune into Dawn, and anything that Angeliska does for Billy and Dawn is
Mhm.
going to help the mother.
Right.
And so I wanted Angeliska there to receive care after the story is over, from people who know what it is to be a caregiver
Yeah.
and to bring medicine,
Yeah.
whether it's spiritual medicine or it's a casserole or it's a
Mhm.
book or a cup of tea.
Yeah. 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 Oh my gosh. So, yeah, I think that when I think about the power of using that book, this book in particular, um, I try to envision, you know, how, you know, what other people might want to ask you once they're able to read it.
Mm,
And I'm imagining that particular character brings the question, you know, how does this person show up? How does this person become accessible to me? How do I find this person or this, whatever this is, you know, and what is it inside of me? Is there a readiness in the character that brings her? What is it that brings her?
a desire to be healed, a desire to heal. I mean, healing, there is no being healed. There
Mhm.
is path of healing. I feel like that's all that Dawn's doing is telling us the story herself
Mhm.
and telling the story to herself
And being believed.
and being believed.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about I I thought a lot about that in the book because when I work with my college students and education students and I talk to them about, there's this sort of, almost conventional idea now, mainstream idea that if you tell your story, it's healing.
Yeah.
And that never rang true for me. And so I felt, I was so relieved that in your book, it was that she was believed. That was the thing that
By
was,
enough people,
yes,
enough of the
yes,
right people.
yeah.
But
And I
she's
think,
also disbelieved. She's believed and disbelieved.
right,
But like, yeah, that's like almost the most fantastical aspect of the story is that she's believed by both her mother and her sibling.
yeah. And I think is that the medicine? I mean, I always tell my students that ask me about what they can be doing as a white person, you know, in terms of allyship or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, well, if you haven't been listening, listen, and then believe,
Mm-hmm.
and then act as if what you were told was true. It's really not that simple, that complicated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when you had her believed,
Mm-hmm.
then I realized, oh, this is going to go somewhere for her. Like this is not going to end where most of these stories end,
Right.
where you're lugging it around like I don't know, just like the three pigs houses,
Yeah.
they all get blown down. You just carrying them around.
Yeah. And she because then the telling of the story, it becomes, and tell, like, I have a really some bitterness around that idea of telling the story, and I
mhm,
disclose that in the story when I say, if you ever
mhm.
choose to tell it, I often regret it. So I
I
can't
saw
tell.
that. Yes, I wondered about that.
Yeah, I can't tell mine. It doesn't get better. It makes things worse if I try to talk about mine. And like it makes it
Mhm,
physically worse. Like I have physical symptoms,
mhm,
not symptoms. Stuff happens to in my
mhm,
body and to my body that
mhm.
is like um, it just makes the telling re traumatizing or something.
Yes.
And then you tell and people are like, yeah, but and what about this? And that doesn't really, and are you sure? And this, and but that doesn't. And it's just like, oh, this is so much worse than not telling. Not telling is good. Not telling is good. Don't tell. And it reminds me of like, Thelma and Louise. I love to go back to Thelma and Louise, where in that movie, all throughout the story, it's like, what happened to you in Texas? And I know what happened to you in Texas. And tell me about Texas. And Louise is like, I'm not going to talk about Texas. In
I
that
forgot
movie,
about that. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, you listen, she pulls the car, like it's the end
Yeah.
of the movie. And we keep thinking we're going to hear
That's
what happened
right.
in Texas.
Yeah.
And Thelma asks her, they're past saving. They're gone. They're over the edge. It's only a matter of time. And so it seems like she has nothing left to lose by telling. And Thelma says, what is that? What happened to you in Texas? And she said, Louise pulls that car over. They're running for their lives. She pulls the car over. She grabs Thelma by her shirt jacket and says, you listen to me. I'm not going to talk about that. You
I do
understand?"
remember that now. Yeah.
And Thelma's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
And but it gets really bad in that moment. And Thelma's just like, you know, just she handles it, you know, she manages it. She
Mhm.
knows she fucked up, but she doesn't know, you know, she learns more about what happened in Texas by Louisa's response. But so anyway, I respect so much that, like, no, there's nothing for me there. And so the
Mhm.
Dawn's telling of the story to herself in the book is more about believing herself
Yeah.
and developing a practice of boundaries, how to
Right.
even understand what boundaries are. So she develops a practice that has to do with art as
Yes.
therapy, art as healing, art as
Mhm.
going inward, and
Mhm.
it solves nothing.
Right.
but,
Yeah.
but
And
it settles
yeah,
her nervous system.
there you go. And that when I first read, I think it's in the beginning where you say, we're not going to talk about what happened. We're going to tell another story. And I went, okay, now we're talking.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I must share that same, sense. I will say I've not met many people that I feel comfortable saying that to, saying, I really don't think this telling the story thing is quite the thing we think it is. I
Yeah.
I just haven't known very many people who've actually experienced healing from it.
And we know that in the white supremacy, the
Mhm.
way that storytelling your trauma has been used and
Yes.
brutalizing
Mhm.
Black and brown people to tell your terrible story so that we can raise money from these Wall Street people who are gathered. We're going to give them so much booze. I write speeches for these annual gala fundraisers. And the whole purpose of those fundraisers is corrupt. Take the child, the 4 children who are going to represent what this organization is going to address in terms of whatever inequities the organization claims to address and probably, intends to address, good intention. But in the presence of white supremacy, we're going to work with that framework. And we're going to assemble people who are so wealthy and so privileged. And now you're going to tell your story of the most shameful experience you've ever had, or the most harm you've ever endured. And you're going to model resilience for people who have no experience with this. And then we're going to squeeze money out of them. And we're going to give you a little bit of it.
So we monetized your trauma and asked you to relive it in order to do so. So this is how and even without the money part, for me, it always felt like the legacy of capitalism that you would think just by saying something out loud that would actually make life better. But it just felt so much like a capitalist thing to say, like, that nobody has to believe you, nobody has to change, nobody has to do anything.
Nobody has to change.
Right. And I keep going back to one of the first things you said to me that I knew we'd hit the ball out of the park, connecting, was when you said to me, I think Reverend Angel says this thing about if there's no transfer of power, it's
That's
performative.
Loretta Ross.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's in from the person you mentioned in Not My Idea, right?
Yes.
So I have this Anastasia file in my brain that has all these, it's like a spider web of, okay, there's this, it's still, I'm still tabulating all of it.
I love it. It's either
I'm gonna have to make art around it to make sense of it all. Yeah, but it's all connected in my head. And, I guess, this is sort of a legacy of education as well. If I think about teachers who might be listening to this, or whoever they share it with, and I think about, that there's this incredible battle over the telling of stories and truths and trauma. In our state legislature in Kentucky, we're meeting about that because that's about to happen in January here. And so it's monetized, and then it's legalized, and it's in this structure that who can relate to it? I mean, who really actually can relate to that? And so when you say that, when I hear you say all of that, I think, so the real value is not in the telling, but in the believing, and then acting as if it's, because it's true.
Yes.
But if it's true, the whole world has to be dismantled.
Right.
Okay. Done.
I mean, that's my understanding.
Yeah, workshop over.
I'm not,
okay.
I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's right, but that's my understanding too. Is like, if you really, like when yes, then you have to, I read an essay about Bell Hooks' work this week, about love does not abuse,
Right.
about the way we raise children. And if you believe that love does not abuse, then you're gonna have to, the whole thing has to come apart. And we have to rebuild something different.
Yeah.
And so one thing I want to say before we run out of time, because you and I connect about this, that being believed, being actually listened to and being believed, and like, don't try to solve it, but just, can you believe me? And
just
then,
believe it.
if you believe it, you have to be changed. Like the child in Not My Idea reads the history, gets that, gets just enough information to be like, oh my God, what okay. So, it's in housing, it's in voting, it's in, it's in education, it's in banking, it's in everything. It's on sidewalks, it's in stores, it's in the media, so the child gets the, like, how much these forces are working on them and working through them, right? And what happens is they're open just enough to want to connect. Connecting means opening, and opening sometimes feels like breaking.
Absolutely.
And so the child's heart breaks, and then the next thing is, I don't feel good. And so what I show, and you ruined it, because I think it's so similar. My experience of being a survivor, not even wanting to use that word, because I have this feeling of like, I need to prove it, but more and more, so I'm going to challenge myself to like leave that word. So being a survivor, and you're not asking, like, there's a similar crisis there with childhood sexual abuse and racialization, the brutality of racism, where you're telling somebody what your experience is, and they're just, I don't see it. That seems too much. You must have gotten that wrong. I think you misunderstood their intentions. I think, and people who are doing this and this and this, or, or attacking. That was you started it. It's your fault.
You asked for it.
And now you need to get over it. It's been too long, whether it's been a month or a year or 30 years or 60 years. It's been too long. You're still wallowing around in this. And so it's so similar.
Absolutely.
There's such a way of like, you can look over and be like, okay, you know, we gotta, don't wait for that validation. Just don't wait for that.
Yeah. And
anyone you can trust.
yeah. And that's what I really appreciated about that book, was that it comes back to, and Bettina Love talks about that in the book I mentioned that we talked about last time. She talks a lot about, you know, I had to believe myself. I had to know my future and what it was going to be. I had to, you know, and she just continues to make those kinds of statements. At least that's the way I read them. So when I read that, you know, so many times you said it in so many different ways, it's not about anything but you knowing. And you know what happened. And, you know, this dance of trying to actually feel that, you know, when everybody around you is saying all at once, it was a long time ago, get over it, and did it actually happen the way you say, and did it, you know, there's all this confusion. And it's like you're switching dance partners constantly. You know, if I think of the metaphor of dance, you know, it's dizzying. And, you know, when you, in dance class, you took dance classes, so you know this whole thing about, you know, if you want to not get dizzy, you have to fix on the gaze while you turn around, right?
Spot.
But it exactly. And so I was thinking, when you were talking about, it's not even about being believed, maybe, as much as it's, you know, that it's yours. I don't know. I find it very challenging to articulate.
Yeah, and it's why, like, when those words came, I feel I'm gonna need this book. Like, I need to open this book and read it again and again. And I don't think, oh, she's so smart for writing those lines. I'm just grateful that those lines are there on the page. I can't prove he did it. All I can do is know it, you know, on that one page. And the character's gonna have to return to that again and again.
Yeah. And I also equate those two together. I also equate the relationship of racialization and trauma, and sexuality and trauma, and all. I think it's all mixed up in the same space as you don't know you. And you know, and it's in the space of, I need you not to know you, because all this has to keep going like it is. And, you know, it's serving something, I don't know, you know, and I know one of the first things, I don't remember when Bill said this to me, but Bill Ayers one time, you know, we were talking about education when he was here one time with my middle school students. And I said, you know, what is it, you know, what is it going to be that undoes this? You know, I mean, yes, I can have my little school here where we do all these great things, but this is one little place, you know, it's one little story. And, you know, he said, well, Michelle, you know, the whole thing's just going to have to be brought down. Like, as if, you know, oh, okay. Just bring it all down, you know.
And I think of it, but I think of what you're doing with teachers, and they're doing with their students, and in their capacity, and their families. And what you and I do with each other now, and giving each other, you know, inspiring each other's confidence and courage and capacity, and all those, and commitment, you know, all those things. Rev Angel talks about those three things: courage, commitment, and capacity. Um,
Mhm.
and when, like, we're just loosening bolts. You know,
Mhm.
like every time a
Oh,
kid
yeah.
reads Not My Idea and
Okay.
resonates, or an adult, whoever, whatever
Yeah.
age,
Yeah.
just loosen some of those bolts, and the structure
I
gets
like that.
a little
Yeah.
like,
It's gonna topple over someday. You
listen,
won't get away with it forever.
won't get away with it forever.
Yeah.
And we're not
Huh. Yeah.
we're not all going to make it. We're already not all making it.
And
You
I
know,
think,
being alive. Yeah.
yeah, but I think I think the wisdom of loosening bolts is going to be something that really is going to be helpful for people to hear,
Yeah.
you know, that you're just going around loosening bolts.
And if you're loosening bolts in yourself,
Yeah.
trust it will collapse.
Hmm.
And because the loosening the bolts, if you combine it with healing and connection and openness and this kind of nourishment and collective, you know, building collective and building relationship with that, you know, that has meaning, and that when that false structure, when that domination structure collapses, something else will already have grown
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what we're helping each other to do and be.
Yeah. And, you know, there's one, I don't remember which book it is where you reference a garden. I think it was maybe
Yes.
in death is.
No, it's not my
No.
idea. Plant justice.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The bean sprout in a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah. And I think about, you know, the Anne Braden story, and my students saying, if you let that grow there, then just about everything. And that's when I started really thinking about the fact that I knew in that it won't surprise you, but I'm just remembering it as I'm listening to you, that there were girls in that class that studied that work with me, who I know had family members, in one case, you know, for lack of a better term, the teacher and social worker described it to me as she was pimped out by her family. You know, so she looked much older than she really was. And this is not one of the children who's featured as the authors of the book. So I want to make sure I'm respecting that individual's privacy. This is a student who was in the class, but not one of the authors of the book. So, because their photographs are in the back of that book. So if there are teachers listening to this or who've read that book that my children wrote, I'm not speaking about anybody whose identity is public. And I think that that was all mixed up too. You know, that for me, that I started to understand in even more depth, you know, the whole relationship of how would she ever tell that story and be believed, and the teachers all knew what was going on and were powerless to stop it. You know, calling protective services or whoever, that had been done and hadn't worked. And, you know, I started thinking about this idea of the garden. I thought, well, no wonder they said that. You know, they see all the horrors of other things that grow in gardens in a way that I never have. And I started to realize, oh, they're not talking about this abstractly. They're talking about something they've seen and felt and possibly experienced. You know, that you all let this garden grow wild and be overtaken by this disease and weed. And now there's all this other stuff that I'm having to tolerate. And that's what comes to me when I listen to you say, you know, the mix of the two things. I think about those children and all the different aspects of their lives, and sexuality was definitely a feature.
Yeah. And just as sexual abuse, sexual violence toward Black women was
right. Yes, exactly.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
And I
And
don't want to hear a word about it from any of you.
I remember the girls asking me, so did, did, and like literally trying to get the words out. So they raped Black girls and Black women? And you could see the light bulbs going off in their heads like, oh, this is not about me. They all of a sudden their own experience.
Yeah.
And then one of them came to me months later and told me this long story of seeing a girl raped, witnessing it.
Mm.
And she'd never told anyone because she didn't think anyone would believe her. And she said, because you told me the truth about the girls getting raped when they were enslaved, I thought you would believe me. And I said, I looked at her and I said, so did you not, you weren't taught that. I know you weren't taught that. That's why you asked me that, right? And she said, no, I thought it. I knew it was true. But I knew I wasn't going to get anybody to tell me it was true. And I went, oh, okay, that's, a lifetime of learning for me.
Yes, me too.
I knew it was true, but I knew if I said it, nobody would tell me it was true. Okay. So now I can tell you I saw this rape happen in my neighborhood. I don't know.
And the desensitization to that degree of violence and that ordinariness,
right,
is part of the genocide.
Yeah. So and
the brainwashing that that white people who don't seek out and don't get and don't have the information. It's like, it's also the when you say it to somebody and they say, I literally can't, or I can't believe it, they are actually blocking.
Right.
And it's like, right, but that's a problem. That's your problem.
Right.
And I know that, in terms of the book, I know that people are afraid to read You Ruined It, because they think I'm going to center the injury, the crime. Because I'm like, as if I'm like a movie maker, and, and I'm going to like exploit the horror and the like I'm going to subject people to. It's like, no. That doesn't even, that I'm not going to do that to my character. You are the one that needs to grow. Like, I'm not saying it right, but it's like, no, I'm not going to show, I'm not going to open up her skin. I'm going to show you what she's working with after it's already done. And then validate the people for whom that has been their experience, to some degree. And so I'm not sure about that. I need to think about that more, but
there's so much. I feel like I think I was thinking about, okay, now I've got all your books in one physical place. They were kind of all around the in different parts of places where I keep books, and now they're all in one place.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And I remember my 6-year-old grandson when I'm just looking at Death is Stupid. Yeah. And no, I was looking at the book, Death is Stupid. And I remember for some reason he asked me the name of the book, what book is that, Grandma? I said, Death is Stupid. And he looked at me, he goes, yeah, it is. Like, yeah, right. And, but when I think about putting all the books together, and it's starting to form into this thing in my head, and my heart too, of course, that each book kind of deserves its own maybe set of conversations as a as a way for people to go through all the books, because you have so much in each book that people could do. And that was one of the things I really liked about them, was there were things that I thought, well, that, there's things for me to do here. I really like that, and kids like that too,
Yeah.
and so they're so respectful of children as a collective. And now that you've said, well, this will be the last one, at least, that's where it is now. I was thinking that You Ruined It has its own kind of particular room in the house for me. It, it feels the same and yet really different.
I was wondering if you thought it felt different. Yeah.
Yeah, it very much did. And I think other people who would present, if I were to do this as something I would present as a series of books and discussions with teachers, which I would very much love to do.
God, me too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, how is that something that appeals to you at all,
so much
to revisit each book and give it its own due? I mean, I sort of feel a little guilty, like I'm hopping through your books when we talk.
Like that though. Imagine how good that feels to me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I guess I worry that, when you land lightly in a space and then you move on to the next space, you don't want to send the message that it wasn't worth staying on.
You never send that.
So that I'm glad to hear that's helpful to me to hear you say that. I don't want to be disrespectful, but that I wanted to say that to you today before we had to stop, because I'm feeling that so strongly, and there's a space for that to happen. That's different now because of COVID. Teachers can listen to conversations, they're opening up to other ways of learning. But I also have access to people, that it's different now. People are asking for more, and I don't know if you feel like giving more.
In terms of these books, I do. I feel like the books have more to give.
They do.
Have more work to do. Like they have more to offer. Like the reason I leave so much space on the page is partly because I just, I want it to be just enough. And I don't want it to take too long to get through the book, and I never wanted to explain anything. Like a divorce happens when two people, she's like, fuck you.
I was about to go like this. I could just see every kid in the room going, shut the fuck up.
Fuck up.
Yeah.
It's like the trees in autumn. It's just like so much of everything that is my person who died, and I'm fucked up for life about it. Just so that
I'm sorry, but that was wonderful.
So each book has space. It's meant to be space on the page and space around the words and space in those weird pictures that I make. I know they're weird, and I know
I love
I know the books are weird, but they're meant to do things like touch this place in you that hurts.
Yeah.
And this other place, and refer you to that place that offers solace too. So you remember that in that moment of like, oh yeah, the cup that she always used. The way she kept a towel on her shoulder, like the books are meant to do these things to work at a subliminal level so that people can come out to themselves from reading the book. Not because the book has all the wisdom, like here's all the wisdom, the end, but like here are some things that are going to stir you up and remind you and draw you out. And now so next is like, let's do a thing. Like, let's hold people. Let's care for them. That I haven't done yet. I've made books, I've promoted
Mhm.
books, I've
Mhm.
talked about the books, but I
Mhm.
haven't done the caring piece yet with people. And I'm not a therapist, I'm not trained that way, but we are, the idea of caring for ourselves with one another has become in the last 2 years
Mhm.
a thing that we're more fluent in and more receptive to.
Exactly. That's
So,
it. Yes.
hi.
Yeah. And, it's, I think I told you that I was trained as a Waldorf teacher, and you're aware of what the Waldorf school system is and all of that. So
From
you,
you and from little bits. Yes, I'm not,
right.
yeah.
But so that it's an arts-based, non-traditional, and it's very connected to, you know, the Angeliscas of the world. As a teacher, you're expected to be Angeliska in many ways for kids. And so and your training, so to speak, is more about that rigor than it is about how to teach somebody to read. I mean, there is that element to it, but it's woven into the fact that you are supposed to be bringing this into this incarnation of this child in a way that makes sense for them. And one of the foundational pieces of that is what you just described. And as all, there's a lot about Waldorf education I love and some that I don't. One of the pieces that I really love is what you just described, and that is that yes, you can go to therapy, you can do all those things, and you should, if that's what you feel called to do as an individual, in order to really walk your destiny, whatever you need to do that.
Mhm.
And your destiny is not residing in you alone. Your destiny is residing in everyone around you.
Mm.
Your story is in them, and their story is in you.
Mm.
And when you forget that, when all of that is forgotten, that's when somebody can tell you, my father raped me, and you can say, I don't think so.
Mm. Mhm.
Because you're not recognizing you're holding that person's destiny in you. And
Mm.
when they speak it to you, you've actually forgotten that, because you've not honored it by saying, oh, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of like another whole conversation to me.
Mm.
But I also felt that from what you just said,
Mhm.
that that we all are, I mean, it sounds trite, but it's not.
And people are developing the skills to do it because we're in such crisis.
Yeah, right.
This idea of and Black led movements and
Mm-hmm.
and healing, those, that is who I'm learning it from.
Mm-hmm.
How will we show up for each other? How do we presence in each other's life across this divide? And then how do we be present in person? Can we bear it? And like, how are we going to bear this together and endure it? So we're let's answer that question by trying, by come together the way we can, come together around these resources that we've identified. Okay, this makes me feel something. Does it make you feel something? Yeah, me too, me too, me too. Okay, let's start with this and see where it leads us. But the goal is each of us and collectively healing.
Oh, that question about can we bear it? And how do we? So maybe that's, I'm listening to you, realizing I think that's what I've been feeling about offering this whole series of books to teachers in a much more intentional, connecting the dots kind of way.
Yeah. So
Then
I'm so appreciative that you even think in those ways. and that you have the expertise and the passion for it, and that we're now connected, we can do that.
Yeah. Well, you just gave it to me. So, thanks. Thanks for thinking it was my idea. That's great.
All right, that's fine too, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really always think that's, I'm gonna have to go,
Yes,
but but I did want to say to you that, I feel this so much gratitude for everything, that you're willing to do with me. And I'm still a little bit in awe of it, to be honest. So, there are two women who I had the same kind of, flow with all my life, over a lifetime, and they're both not here anymore. And I miss them so much. And I'm starting to think maybe it was their gift to me, to realize that I could do this again. I haven't let myself. I've come in contact with a lot of women who offer me some of the same feelings sometimes. And some of them are listening, and I know they, it's like, and I love them, and I want that flow with them now in a way that I haven't been open to before. But something about what you're willing to do with me is letting me think, oh, maybe Madeline and Patty are up there just drinking tea and saying,
keep it going.
Yeah, she's been hiding out a little long. Let's give her this gift of this amazing person who, and then honestly, really, when I think about just Sally and Linda Berry, I say, okay, Patty and Madeline, okay. Okay, I will stop hiding out.
There's your signs.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to share that with you, that I really can feel them. And maybe, thank you so much for that. So, all right.
Okay, I know you're going to go places. Thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you. I will see you next Tuesday.
Okay, great.
All right. Bye.
All right.